Well, this week, former President Trump was booked and photographed in the state of Georgia on charges related to his attempts to overturn the 2020 election there. And it all happened the same week his Republican opponents took to the debate stage without him in the first debate of the 2024 election. And though the former president wasn't there in person, he and his legal troubles still loomed large. Here's Washington correspondent Anna Wernicke.
This is the fourth time that former President Donald Trump has been indicted, but Thursday's booking looked a little bit different than what we've seen this past year, as it was the first time that former President Donald Trump has had his mugshot taken. Former President Donald Trump left Georgia Thursday night after he was booked at the Fulton County Jail.
We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong.
Trump is accused of being the head of a 19-member criminal enterprise that worked to change the outcome of the 2020 election in Georgia.
If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election.
Trump's former White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, one of the 19 defendants charged in the indictment, turned himself in Thursday. And Trump's former lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, surrendered on Wednesday.
This indictment is a travesty. I'm being prosecuted for defending an American citizen.
Trump skipped Wednesday's first Republican primary debate, but his indictments still managed to take center stage. The 8 candidates were asked if they would support Trump as the GOP nominee, even if he is convicted. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie was one of 2 candidates who said they would not.
Whether or not you believe that the criminal charges are right or wrong, the conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States.
The arraignments for the defendants, including Trump, will likely take place the week following Labor Day. For now, in Washington, I'm Anna Wernicke. Back to you.
Anna, thank you. Thursday, Vice President Kamala Harris reacted to the first debate, saying no one on stage won tonight's debate. Instead, the American people heard how much they stand to lose from an extremist agenda. She said one by one, each extremist Republican, as she called them, laid out a vision for an America that is less fair, less free, and less safe. On social media, Indiana Senate candidate and current Congressman Jim Banks said, quote, Donald Trump is winning this debate. He also posted, there can be no other candidate in 2024, along with a picture of Trump's mugshot. I also spoke this week with Senator Mike Braun, who's currently running for governor. You reacted to the news of his latest indictment. What do you make of his decision not to debate the other candidates, and will you be supporting him in his bid for re-election?
So I think he's making a smart decision there, because I think you could only probably be hurt by that. I do like the idea that you're having dialogue with who your competitors are. I embrace kind of competition and all of that, and of course you can see my field is going to be a lively one too, running for governor. I think that it's been so clear in terms of where Republican primary voters are, and I say it goes back to one thing very simple. When he arrived on the scene in 2016, he represented that uneasiness with D.C. business as usual. And I've been there for 4.5 years, and you see it up close like I do. I think it's worse than what you can imagine. And I think it's evolved over time in both parties. I think that that's what explains his resilience and his strength.
Would you endorse him after everything that's happened, and are you concerned at all that
I am not endorsing at this point anyone, but I would not endorse anyone else. And when the time is right, if I did endorse, it would be President Trump. But I've been so focused on my own race, and when you get into endorsements at any level, it causes complications. But clearly, he's resonating because I can see it. Things are not working in D.C. And a lot of that, look at the political enterprising with the Biden administration that doubles down on so much borrowing and spending. And I never imagined we'd be looking at nearly $33 trillion in debt. And I think that still is embodied mostly through President Trump, because he did it. Things were working so well pre-COVID, and he's going to win the primary, and to me it's clear why.
What if he's convicted, though? Could he really serve as president?
I think when you get down to those issues constitutionally, that won't make a difference, I don't think, from what I understand. I think that is additional challenges in terms of how you navigate through it. I come at it from being a Hoosier with a different approach, and when he came into my race 4 times when I was running against 2 congressmen and then unseated a sitting senator, I think that says something about what is represented there. And I think the complications you're describing make it more difficult, but it doesn't appear to have any impact in the Republican primary so far.
Let's talk about your race for governor. There's a new candidate in the race recently here, Brad Chambers. Curtis Hill also joined the race here in recent weeks. It's an even more crowded field than when you jumped in, and a number of you may be able to self-fund your campaigns to some degree. What makes you stand out in this very crowded field?
Well, I think that's going to be clear. Remember, back in 17 and 18, I declared in August of 17, and there were 3 other outsider candidates, all of whom eventually ended up supporting me because they thought I had the best chance to unseat 2 sitting congressmen. And then doing that, and we did that with some margin to spare, because I think that outsider don't accept business as usual in D.C. clearly resonates. And I think that goes deeply into independents. And even if Democrats were honest, they wouldn't want what they've created here with all this debt, borrowing, and spending. So to me, competition, I started with 1% in the first public opinion poll, with 6 in that race, and we navigated through it. I think we're in a stronger position now due to my record in the Senate, the fact that I'm viewed as an entrepreneurial type politician. I've been the easiest guy to access if you've got an issue. We've solved 10,000 cases for Hoosiers in constituent services, and no senator or governor invites Hoosiers to visit myself in their hometown, and I've done that since I've been elected, and I visit all 92 counties.